What's up, it's Rob TheTechWhiz here, bringing you the second part to my How to Live Stream for Free tutorial series. If you missed the first part, be sure you go and check that out before you watch this part. I'll put a link in the description and an annotation on the screen. In that part, I just showed you how to set up the settings for the program that we're using called Open Broadcaster software. Now, I watched that part back, and I noticed that for whatever reason, I neglected to talk about this FPS setting under the video section. So I'm just going to talk about that real quick before I get started on this part. So you probably figured it out, but what this is the target output frames per second that you want for your stream. I keep mine set at 30, and I'm happy with the quality, even though I play games that are even 60 frames per second. Outputting to the stream at 30 frames per second, the quality is just fine. I'm happy with it. But if you want to increase it to, say, 60, for example, keep in mind that the higher you have this set, the more encoding that's going to be required, which means the more strain you're going to have on your CPU. So make sure that you have a higher end CPU if you want to output at 60 frames per second. If you're not sure what to set this at, if you go to the website that I talked about in the first part called obsproject.com/estimator, it's going to give you their recommendations for what to set this at based on the information that you told them over here on the left. So it tells me that I should set mine to 30, but that I could put it at 60 if I do a resolution downscale, which I do. I generally downscale from 1080 to 70. But that's something that you're going to have to figure out on your own, get some feedback from your stream, and make sure the quality is good. But like I said, 30 works just fine for me, so I assume it should be good for you. Okay, now that part's out of the way, I'm going to get into what I want to talk about for this part of the tutorial, which is how to actually add the elements to your stream. And at the end of the tutorial, in combination with the first tutorial, you're going to be able to start your stream. So I want to first talk about just this main window here. So this section right here is where you're going to see the preview of your stream, and when you're streaming, it's what your stream's going to look like. Then down here in the bottom left, you see scenes and sources. Now, sources are the actual elements of your stream, whether it be a webcam, an image overlay, the footage from your capture card, some kind of text that you have on the screen. That's what a source is. And then a scene is just made up of a bunch of different sources. So you have all these different things that make up one scene, and you can have multiple scenes, and if you right click on them, you can add new ones or set hotkeys to them, and while you're streaming you can switch between different scenes and things like that. Same way to add a source, just right click in the white area, go to add, and then you can pick any kind of source you want. I'm going to talk about each of these sources a little bit later on individually in the tutorial. So over here, I'm pretty sure I talked about these in the last part, but right here you have your microphone audio volume control and your desktop audio control. Then down here, obviously, settings button takes you to the settings for OBS. Edit scene will be enabled once you're previewing or starting your stream. Global sources I'll talk about more towards the end of the tutorial, but just quickly, a global source is a source that is independent of the scene, meaning that as soon as you start your stream, no matter what, the source is loaded into memory. So if you switch between scenes, or if you disable and then re-enable a source, it's not going to have to load up all over again, because it's already going to be loaded into memory. So it'll just be able to run like nothing happened. Then over here, these buttons, a couple buttons are self-explanatory. Start streaming to the service that you have set up in the settings, in your broadcast settings. Preview stream is just going to enable a preview window right here. You'll be able to see what your stream actually looks like, and edit the different sources and things like that. Plugins is just a list of the plugins that you have installed, and exit will obviously exit the program. So I'm just going to show you quickly just an example of what it looks like when I stream. In my stream, I have my capture card software of my Xbox, usually a Twitch banner that I'll have down here, and then my webcam in the upper right. So once you have sources set up, if you click on preview stream, like I said, you're going to see a preview window right here. And there I am in the upper right. Hello. So this is just an example of a setup that you can have while you're streaming. This is my usual setup for when I stream. So now at least you have a visual idea of what it can look like at the end of this video. So I'm going to stop that. And now, like I said earlier, I'm going to jump into talking about the different sources individually. So the first source I want to talk about is window capture. Once you choose source, you'll be able to rename it if you want, but for now I'm just going to leave them as is. So what this is, it's pretty self-explanatory. You just capture a certain window as opposed to capturing, say, your whole monitor. You can choose a specific window or program that you want to capture. So let's go ahead and open up, say, Audacity as an example, and select it from the list. Now right here's an interesting setting. You can choose to capture the inner window or the entire window. Now the inner window is just going to be the main part of the program window, like this inner gray part right here. Now if I were to capture the entire window, it's going to go around the outside border and include like these buttons and things like that up here. So that's a cool setting. Usually you just want to leave it on inner setting. Capture mouse cursor, self-explanatory. Choose whether or not you want the mouse cursor to show. Compatibility mode you shouldn't have to worry about. That's just if you have I think like a slower GPU or something like that, it'll capture it to the RAM, and then into the program from there. But hopefully you don't have any issues with that. If you do, if you have problems just doing like a window capture or something like that, you should probably reconsider live streaming and upgrade your computer first. But that aside, gamma, change the gamma of the window capture, and as you'll notice, each of the sources have a lot of the same settings in common, like most of this stuff up here in the subregion and the color key. Now color key and point filtering, I'm really not sure what they are, to be honest, so I don't mess around with them too much. But opacity is another setting that you'll see on most of the other sources as well, and that's just the visibility of whatever your source is. So at 100 you see it 100% as is. Now when you start to lower it, you can kind of see through it a little bit. So that's something you may want to consider, like in my example that I showed you, like I could lower the opacity of the Twitch banner that I keep in the bottom left. That way you can still see some of the gameplay behind it, but that's up to you if you want to change that or not. Then subregion, you can select this, and you can select a custom subregion within the window, or you can set a certain size if you want. So I'm just going to go ahead and click OK, and I'll show you a preview of what this would look like. Now OBS is in the way, but here, let me make this bigger. I'll take time right now, I guess, to talk about the edit scene option here. As you can see, since I started previewing the stream, the edit scene button became clickable. So if you click it, from here you can choose whichever source you want. So I'll click on window capture because it's obviously my only source, and from here you can move it around and resize it and things like that. Now you'll notice that it tends to snap into corners automatically, and if you don't like that, you can hold Control on your keyboard and move it around freely. It won't snap to any edges or to the corners or anything like that, but generally you kind of want it to be in the corner and then resize it from there. But also when you're clicking and dragging to resize, it resizes the source and also maintains its aspect ratio. So see here, like if I were to try to stretch it out widthwise or horizontally, it's not going to let me because it wants to maintain the aspect ratio. So if you want to break the aspect ratio while you're resizing, if you hold the Shift key down on your keyboard, it will allow you to do that then. Then as soon as you let go of the Shift key, it'll bounce back to the aspect ratio. So if you want it to stretch out, hold the Shift key, let go of the mouse, and then the Shift button. Otherwise, it's just going to bounce right back. Something else, while you're moving it around, say you move it way off to the side over here, and now you can't click on it anymore. If you come down here and right-click on the name of the source, go to Position and Size, and you can choose Center. Now, some of these other things you might be interested to, you can play around with those, but if you lose it, a good way to get it back is to just click Center, and it'll put it right in the middle of the preview window again. So generally you just want to snap whatever it is up in the corner, especially if it's like your capture card or something like that. At first when you resize it, you just want to make it the size of the entire window here. So I think that pretty much covers it for edit scene, but once you start playing around with it, it's pretty easy to get the hang of it. So we'll get off of that and stop the preview for window capture. I'm just going to go ahead and remove this, and next up is monitor capture. So again, probably figure out what this is. As opposed to capturing just the window of a program, you'll be able to capture your entire computer monitor. So if you have multiple monitors, you can select them from the list down here. Again, a lot of the same settings: capture cursor, compatibility mode, gamma, opacity, and subregion. Now this setting here, captured layer windows, it's supposed to enable the ability to capture for like multiple windows here that are stacked on top of each other, but I have left this unchecked and checked both with arrow turned on and off, and I still haven't noticed a difference. So I'm not sure if it varies based on your computer whether or not you can capture layered windows, but you probably shouldn't have a problem with it. If you do run into a problem while you're capturing your monitor and you can't see one of the windows, you might want to come in and check that and see if that helps. But I'll go ahead and show you an example of this as well. As you can see, my entire monitor, if you see these little flashing things right here, that's because that's the region of the screen that I'm recording. But again, if you want to edit the scene, just click on that and you can resize it to make it smaller, bigger, or what have you. So stop that one and just go ahead and remove this. And I'm removing them as I talk about them, but as you saw in my example, you can have multiple sources in a scene, so you don't have to only have one. So next up, image. You can browse your computer and just select an image to put into your stream. The one that I like to use mostly when I'm streaming on Twitch is this banner here to try to route people to my YouTube channel and my Twitter account. So if you're not following me on Twitter, there'll be a link in the description to that, and you can follow me on Twitter too. So from here, once you have the image selected, the color is always going to be white by default, and that's just going to be the image as is. You can double click it and select a different color, and that's going to put kind of like if you picked green, it's going to put kind of a green tint on it, things like that. But generally you just want to let it white. Again, opacity, and check for file changes if you want. It's probably a good idea to check this, but I believe what this means is that while you're streaming, if you were to change the image file itself, it will update in the stream. So that might be something that you want to leave checked. So, I mean, you saw this in the preview earlier, but I'll show you again. You can have the image there for your stream. Remove, and next up, I think, yep, image slideshow. So similar to the image, you just add multiple images, and then just pick this one, and then from there you can change the time in between the images, and by default I believe the images fade in, both in and out, so you can disable fading altogether or do a fade in only. Randomize will just mix up the order of them instead of going in order as they're listed here. So I'll just go show you an example of this. We'll say 2 seconds in between, preview, can't see it, there we go, nice little slideshow. Okay. So next up is text. So this is obviously if you just want to have some text on your screen during your stream. The only time I think I would really use this is to maybe scroll something on the problem or across the bottom of the screen. Technical difficulties. Like if you're having problems in your stream like that, you can put some text down here. For example, sorry, we're having some technical difficulties, stream will be back up soon, or something like that. Or if your audio is messed up and people can't hear you, you can put text on the screen that way. So I'm going to go ahead and change the color to white so you can see it in the preview. And most of these settings up here you should probably be familiar with. Most of them are just like you would see in something like Microsoft Word. You can change the font size, make it bold, italic. Again, the opacity, the background opacity, the color. This right here is the color of the text and the color of the background. I'm not really sure what this is, to be honest. Text from file. I guess if you have a text file or something like that. What else was I going to talk about? Oh yeah, scroll speed. This is generally you only want to use this if you have your text, like if it's a really long string of text, you want to have it scroll across the screen because it can't all fit at once. But usually if it's just a short little snippet of text, you don't need to have this. So let's say, for example, scroll speed 10. Click OK and preview, and there we have it, scrolling very slowly across the screen. I guess 10 isn't very fast, but yeah, there's an example for that. Okay, next up into kind of the more important of the sources down here. Video capture device and game capture. Now, video capture device is what you're going to use for both, for example, a webcam or your capture card. So we'll select this, and let me call this. I'll talk about capture card first. Okay, so from this list here, you'll be able to choose your capture card, assuming, of course, you have it plugged into your computer. So I use the Elgato, as I said in the first part. Right here, this configure button, if you click on it, it will bring up the settings for your capture card or webcam or whatever itself, and you can change those settings right from this screen. A lot of these are self-explanatory. Again, here's the opacity, but right here, oh, I guess I should also mention this. A lot of the other sources you saw, I think it was color key. This has chroma key, but again, to be honest, I'm really not sure what that is, so I don't mess around with it. But right here in the video section, if you want to capture it in a custom resolution, you can change that here. Like if you have your Elgato settings set to record at 1080, but in this instance you only want to record at 720, you can change to that right here. You can change the frames per second down here, and over here under audio, you can choose which audio to use. Like if you're playing a game and you have it playing into your headset, maybe you want to choose that. But I just use the device audio usually. And then down here, this is kind of important. If you output the stream only, it's going to output the sound of, say, your Xbox directly to the stream, and you won't really be able to adjust it except in the audio settings of whatever game you're playing. So it's usually a good idea to output it to the desktop. That way you can control the audio from this desktop volume slider right here. So you saw this in my example earlier, but I'll go ahead and show you the preview here just to prove that it works if it ever loads up. So there we have it. It's kind of gone black. There we go. But there it is again. Again, you can resize this. As you saw, it was kind of scaled down, but generally you wanted to have this take up the whole screen when you're live streaming a game. Okay, so we'll stop this. And then I will talk about, let's remove it, the video capture device for a webcam. It's pretty much the same as the capture card. Just select it from the drop-down list, and again, if you click on this configure, it's just going to bring up the settings for your webcam or whatever, and then you can enable face tracking or things like that. Okay, so we'll cancel out of there, and again, a lot of the same settings. You can have custom resolution if you're not happy with the default, and same thing with audio, except usually if you want to usually you want to disable your webcam audio if it has a built-in microphone. If you have an external microphone, like if you're using a headset or if you have a desktop microphone, you want to disable this altogether. Even still, if you don't have any of that stuff and you do want to use the microphone from your webcam, usually it's a good idea to keep this disabled as well, and then just add the microphone as the microphone in your audio settings for your for OBS. That way, again, you can adjust it with the volume audio control on the main window back here. So 9 times out of 10, you usually just want to keep your webcam audio disabled. So again, just because I'm sure you missed me, I'll show you a preview there, and then we'll move on to the last source, which is game capture. Now this is where you would add anything, like if you're playing a computer game, especially full screen. This is where you're going to do it. You wouldn't use, I should have mentioned it when I was talking about the monitor capture, but if you're playing a full screen game, don't use monitor capture, use game capture. And this is a little tricky to try to show you, but I'll do my best anyway. So if you choose a game that you want to play, say I want to play The Elder Scrolls. Come on. So go ahead and get it started up. And then once it's full screen, if you press Alt-Tab together, it's going to minimize it and bring up the last application that you are working on. So if you refresh, it's now going to be listed here as a game to capture. So once you have that chosen, again, the only setting is pretty self-explanatory: stretch image to fit screen if you want to do that. So click OK, and now when I preview it, you're not going to see it because it's minimized, but it will work as soon as you bring it back up. So to bring it back up, if you hold the Alt key down again and then tab through to the game, you might have to do it twice, I always have to, I'm not sure why. And then when you bring it up, now here's the game again, although you are only seeing a portion of it. So once you have the game back up again, if you press tab, now you'll be able to see it in the preview window. Hopefully you couldn't hear that audio, I didn't notice it before. But you'll see it in the preview window, so it does work, it's just hard to demonstrate. So usually if you want to live stream a full game, you have to get this all set up, minimize the game, and then start streaming and bring the game back up and just trust that it works. You can ask some people in your stream to leave comments or things like that. Although it's definitely a lot easier if you have like a dual monitor setup. That way you can have your game running on a different monitor and OBS on the other monitor, so you can make sure that it's working. Stop the preview and remove it. But like I said, it's a little tricky to show it, but trust me, it works. I've done it. So once you do it, if you follow what I said, you'll get the hang of it and it'll become easy. So that sums up all the sources. So now I'm going to talk a little bit more in depth about global sources. Okay, so I think the best way to explain global sources is to give you kind of a little demonstration that I set up here. So I have two scenes set up. One scene is just a text that says on break we'll be back, we'll be streaming again in 5 minutes, sorry. And then my other scene is the scene that I showed you previously of my normal stream. And now the sources that I have right here for the Elgato and my webcam are not added as global sources, they're just added as sources like I showed you how to do earlier. So the problem with that is, which I'll demonstrate here in a second, is that when if I'm streaming right now and then I switch to this scene to let everyone know that I'm on break and I'll be back in a few minutes, when I return and switch back to my other scene, I'm going to have to wait for my Elgato and my webcam to load all over again. So I'll just show you that real quick. So let's get the right scene up here. Okay, so you saw how long it took for the Elgato to load up there. So let's say I'm playing right now and I have to go to the bathroom, so I switch to this scene to let everyone know that I'm on break. 5 minutes goes by, I come back and then switch back to my stream scene. Again, I have to wait for the Elgato to get loaded up all over again. So the way around that is to add your webcam and the Elgato as global sources, because like I was saying earlier, global sources are sources that exist, whoops, not that one, that exist independent of the scenes. So when you switch scenes, it's not going to matter because the source is going to be loaded up into memory already. So to add a global source, just click on global sources, and then click add, and choose the type of source that you want. In this case, both of them are going to be video capture devices, and the one we'll just name Elgato. Now choose that, select that, click OK, and then add your other one, it's your webcam, click OK, webcam, everything else is right. Okay, so now they're added as global source, and then are added as global sources. So just to add them to your stream, you just now you'll see global source listed as a type of source when you right click. So just add those like you would any of the other sources like I showed you just a second ago. And now they're added in your stream. And just as tip, the sources are layered, meaning that you generally want to keep your capture card on the bottom, meaning that that's the bottom layer and then everything else is on top of that. Otherwise, like in this case, if I preview here, I'll show you. If I preview, let me resize everything. Come on. Put that up there and resize this. Okay, so since the Elgato is not on the bottom and the banner's being covered up. So generally you want to put the capture card on the bottom and then have everything else on top of that, like your webcam on top and your banner on top or your overlay or whatever you have. So now that these are added as global sources, if we're in the same situation and we're streaming, and this is our stream right here, and we have to go to the bathroom and we switch to our break. So this breaks up, you come back, and then you switch back see, everything's instantaneous because it's already loaded into memory, and you don't have to wait for your capture card and your webcam to get loaded up all over again. So definitely something that you want to do. Be sure that you add your webcam and your capture card as a global source, and anything else really that you want to have a global source. Now, I didn't add the image as a global source because it's not really necessary, because it loads really quickly either way, so it's not necessary. So I'll stop that. Okay, so that's pretty much it. You have all the tools you need to be able to start live streaming, all for free. In part 1, I showed you how to adjust the settings in OBS, and part 2, I showed you how to add elements to your stream and actually start streaming. So you should have everything you need. I'm just going to go ahead and show you that it does work. I have my settings in my broadcast settings in OBS set to my Twitch channel. So I'm going to go ahead and click Start Streaming. And in just a sec, should see it live over here. Yep, there we are. And you'll notice there's definitely a delay, but that's something that you have to deal with for a little bit. Eventually, I'll probably put a third part to the tutorial series up where I'll give you some tips on how to match everything up, sync everything up, being that your voice matches up with your lips on your webcam, and that everything matches up with the gameplay, so you're not reacting 5 minutes after something happens. So that's what the third part will be. But I definitely appreciate it. If you could like the video, let me know you liked the series. Let me know if you have any problems setting anything up, or you have any problems with your stream. Let me know in the comments below, or I'll put a link in the description to my Twitter, like I said earlier. If you follow me on Twitter and send me a tweet, I'll be able to help you out as best I can. And that's pretty much it. So thanks for watching.